20 years of finding brands that capture $1 billion.
Good morning, you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint. I'm Darshan Mehta. Let's take a look at first what happened as far as the global markets were concerned. The US markets were muted in trade yesterday. All of them ended pretty flat in trade, but there was traction across Europe. Europe ended up almost 1.5%. Asia is currently trading with a positive bias, so that's the trend is extremely positive. The SGX Nifty is important. It was trading with a negative downtick of 35 points. Now it's moved into the green, about the 10,600 mark in trade. So there is traction that's happening as far as our markets are concerned, and probably a muted to a slightly positive opening is something that we can expect. Most of the ADRs ended with a positive bias except for Wipro, which was trading with a negative bias. Across the board there was buying that was seen, so that's the traction that you saw on the ADR side of the market. So Wipro was the only one that was down by almost close to 0.5%. As far as the markets were concerned, we ended up almost 60 points, 0.5%, but there was clear outperformance by the mid cap and the small cap end of the market. The Nifty PSU Bank was one of the best performing indices. It was up almost 2.6%. The Nifty Bank, because of weakness in several of the prime banking stocks, was slightly muted in trade. Now, if you're looking at what happened, FI sold in 2,400 crores in the cash market. DI has bought in pretty much an equal amount in the cash market, and that's why the market managed to rally in trade. The Nifty was up 60 points. Both HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank contributed negatively, but there was traction that was seen in Kotak, ITC, SBI and TCS, which led the rally higher on the Nifty itself. Now, as far as the F&O market is concerned, there was short covering that was seen on the Nifty. Open interest was down almost 2%, but there was fresh buying that was seen on the Nifty Bank. Open interest built up on the Nifty Bank was 6%, that too on the long side. Now, where are positions taken? We are currently at the 10,600 mark in trade, so from 10,500 to lower levels and a little bit at 10,600. Put writers are active and call writers are active from 10,500 to higher levels. So that's the trend that you are expected to see today in trade. Since the market is looking slightly better, call writers, put writers will again become aggressive at levels of 10,400, 500, 10,400, 10,500 and pretty much 10,600, and you might see open interest decline in some of the calls that have been written. As far as the stocks in the F&O band are concerned, there are only 2 stocks in the F&O band and they continue to remain. The Nifty PCR, the Bank Nifty PCR also managed to inch in higher since the market managed to move up in trade. Now, which are the stocks that moved up on high open interest build up? So you had counters like a Cholamandalam Finance, which saw fresh shorts that came in, and Reliance Infra saw fresh shorts. But apart from it, SRF, Colgate and Bata saw fresh longs on high open interest build up. And these are the counters which saw short covering that came in. Open interest declining anywhere between 8% to 11% in trade. So these are all the domestic cues that you're watching. Let's go across to Sue Keenan for all the top international headlines.
The European Union is digging in on the Brexit deal, with officials fearing that the UK will make repeated calls for concessions. While Prime Minister Theresa May visited Brussels, The Hague and Berlin, diplomats stressed that leaders plan only a minimal response to help her sell the deal in Parliament. Sterling fell to a 20-month low against the dollar after May abandoned the Brexit debate in the Commons. Google CEO Sundar Pichai, meanwhile, has rejected claims of bias while stressing that the company's American roots are what's important. Lawmakers from both parties asked about data collection and how much information Google absorbs routinely, although Pichai sidestepped the question about whether users fully understand the terms. He also says Google has no current intention of launching a search engine designed for China.
I commit to engaging. One of the things which is important to us as a company, we have a stated mission of providing users with information. And so we think it's in our duty to explore possibilities to give users access to information. And, I have that commitment, but, as I said earlier on this, we'll be very thoughtful and we will engage widely as we make progress.
To the drama at Nissan. Reports from Tokyo say the automaker has begun sharing its allegations against former chairman Carlos Ghosn with partner Renault. in the hope of easing the climate of suspicion since his arrest 3 weeks ago. Now, we're told lawyers have been briefed, have actually briefed their French counterparts about why Ghosn was toppled and charged with financial crimes. Renault and the French government say they've been kept in the dark since his arrest. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Sue Keenan. This is Bloomberg.
Right now, we have no plans to launch in China. We don't have a search product there. Our core mission is to provide users access to information, and getting access to information is an important human right. So we are always compelled across the world to try hard to provide that information.
Well, the context is that Google has pulled back from 2 deals with the Pentagon at the same time, while there are these news reports that the company is exploring producing a search product for China. And lawmakers on both sides of the aisles had a lot of questions about this. U.S. lawmakers, say, hey, look, China has some human rights abuses that we're very concerned about. And we're also very concerned that you seem to be willing to work with the Chinese government. And so he was pressed on to detail exactly what their plans are and how far they've gotten.
Crude oil prices edged higher on Tuesday, with the WTI futures gaining more than 1% on the back of reports of a higher than expected drawdown in U.S. crude inventories, which, according to a report by the American Petroleum Institute, fell 10.2 million barrels last week. Additionally, oil prices will continue to trade on the upside as traders expect the prices to go up after the announcement by Saudi Arabia to cut the output to about 10.2 million barrels starting next year, down 900,000 barrels a day from November. Most base metal names, they ended the day higher on the back of signs that trade talks between China and the United States are progressing. Copper led the gains with sharp gains in excess of 1% on Tuesday, followed by lead and tin. Zinc ended the day 0.5% higher, snapping its 3-day losing streak. Meanwhile, gold prices, they ended the day marginally lower, moving between gains and losses as prices approached their 200-day moving average. Traders continue to remain optimistic on the back of rising ETF holdings and an unwinding of net short positions.
Well, a bunch of news that we're tracking this morning. I'm going to be starting off with Reliance Jio Infocom, where the board has approved transferring 2 of its units, that is the fiber and the tower assets business, into 2 separate companies, which will be subject to requisite approvals both from statutory as well as regulatory norms. A bunch of pharmaceutical companies are expected to be in focus today. I'm going to start off with Dr. Reddy's Lab, where the company's request to sell Suboxone has been rejected by the U.S. court. Now, it's a negative development coming in for the company. The sales ban will remain in force to give Indivior time to challenge the decision. Also, we're tracking in Unichem Lab, where the company has received tentative approval from US FDA from Tadalafil tablets. Also, we're tracking Aurobindo Pharma, where the Netherlands subsidiary has entered into a pact to form a joint venture in China, which is going to be manufacturing for non-nebulizer inhaler products. Separately, CCI approval has come in for 2 of the deals, where the first one is for the acquisition of Usha Martin business by Tata Sponge for an enterprise value of around 4,300 to 4,700 crore. Separately, also Zydus Wellness acquisition of Heinz India jointly with Cadila Healthcare also has seen approval from CCI. Apart from that, we are also tracking in PNC Infra, where the company has submitted financing documents to NHAI for its HAM project in Karnataka, which is to the tune of around 1,157 crore. With this, it has submitted all the documents related to its 7 HAM projects and is further on the road to the execution of these HAM projects. Clearly a road ahead for this company. Also, we're expecting auto stocks to remain in focus today. We have a Bloomberg news which suggests that China is moving towards cutting its trade war tariffs on imported US-made cars. Now, the proposal is to reduce the levies to around 15% from 40% earlier, and this is expected to be reviewed in coming days.
In the course of 24 hours, we have seen one RBI governor abruptly resign and another one being appointed. But the reality of the situation is that individuals move on. It's the institutions that matter and the strength of the institutions that matter. From here on, the focus thus will be on who is Shaktikanta Das and can he uphold the functional autonomy of the Reserve Bank of India and resolve some of these very ugly differences that have cropped up between the RBI and the government in a manner which doesn't compromise the RBI. So a brief mention of who Shaktikanta Das is. We all know him from his recent stint in the government. He's a 1980s batch IAS officer of the Tamil Nadu cadre. He was currently a member of the 15th Finance Commission. He was also a representative at the G20 in the role of a Sherpa. He will now demit those two roles as he takes over the role of an RBI governor. We know him, most familiar with his role played during the demonetization period. He was at that point in time the Economic Affairs Secretary, so he fronted the government's defense on demonetization. Those images of him and Urjit Patel standing together with the newly minted notes are imprinted in many of our minds as we watch that entire demonetization story play out. He was a great supporter, at least at that time, of demonetization. Perhaps in the role of an Economic Affairs Secretary, he had little choice but to support demonetization. But he did support, or at least voice all the thoughts put out by the government that demonetization will lead to black money being eradicated from the economy. Greater digital payments and counterfeit currency also was some of the reasons that he had given. But that's in the past. The question is, what are his views on some of the issues that we are facing currently? Unfortunately, he has been very quiet on the current views. There isn't much commentary to go by to understand what he, for instance, thinks about the amount of capital on the RBI's balance sheet, or what his views are on governance structures of the RBI Central Board, or mundane matters like the prompt corrective action framework, or what are the Basel norms that should be applied to the Indian banks. We don't have his views on any of that, and in some ways that's a silver lining, because he can now fashion his views based on his view as an RBI governor. So he can go into the institution, he can take stock of the issues that are being debated, and he can form a view based on what the view of the institution is and whether he wants to make any changes on those views or not. So that's sort of the table that he goes to and the issues that he deals with on that table at Mint Street. The markets will be watching from here on to see what happens on those individual issues. You may or may not see any reaction on the markets. I think the fact that you have a new governor appointed quite quickly, that will certainly be a relief. But I think the judgment on whether he is the right governor and he's taking the right decisions will be based on what happens on individual issues, whether it is on banking regulation or it is on his views on monetary policy, etc. On monetary policy, though, it has to be said that the danger of any sharp change in stance is very limited, given that we are under a monetary policy committee regime. So that's it. We have a new governor and we will make a judgment on him as we start to hear from him on your issues.
I think he has the right credentials. He has been extremely professional, has worked under various governments and has excelled himself. And I'm sure in meeting the challenges before India's economy as a governor of the Reserve Bank, he'll certainly add to that office. The government of India strongly believes that the Reserve Bank is an independent and an autonomous body. It's a highly professional body in its own field, and the government will fully support the Reserve Bank of India and coordinate with it in various areas where consultations with the government are required to make sure that India's economy benefits the best from both governmental policy decisions as also as those areas which fall within the domain of the Reserve Bank.
I think there is a lot of institutional continuity. So at least on the interest rate side, there is a monetary policy committee which has already signaled the direction of inflation forecasts. In fact, the outgoing governor himself had signaled something on inflation. So there is a lot of continuity, and so long as there is a non-controversial person who comes in who can actually work with the government, I think the situation should calm down over time.
There have been many IAS officers who have been governors of the Reserve Bank. But certainly I do hope that once he takes over charge as a governor, of the Reserve Bank of India. He will become part of this new institution and try to maintain its independence, autonomy, and credibility.
The agenda has been circulated. If the governor feels he needs time, those can be deferred and taken up at the subsequent meeting. It's not a big thing.
Whatever the final numbers may say, there are some key takeaways from the results of elections in 5 states. We've picked the top 5 takeaways from you so we can break down what election 2018 has meant for both the Congress and the BJP, and of course for the big general elections next year. So very briefly, point number 1 is Rahul Gandhi's resurgence. Now it is pretty clear that the Congress has won 2 out of 5 states, namely Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Madhya Pradesh is a close fight, but the Congress has made significant gains here. However you slice and dice the numbers, at the end of the day, Rahul Gandhi, exactly a year to the date when he was named Congress president, has proven his mettle in the only competition that matters for politicians, that is winning elections. From here on, Rahul Gandhi moves ahead with a big advantage and a big victory under his belt. Conversely, if there is a winner, then there will be a set of losers as well. And in this case, it is one combination which was supposed to be an invincible election machine, that of Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah. That combination has not worked out in all 3 states of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. Even though there was anti-incumbency, it was expected that booth-level management, powerful rallies by the Prime Minister, and that overall promise of a central government in Delhi performing would pull them through. That clearly has not happened. For the BJP, it's going to be back to the drawing board because they have to face another very big election in just a few months from now. Another big key takeaway, and I think this would be the most primary one, because in all of these 5 states, we saw farmer distress and unemployment ruling the roost in terms of issues, things that people care about and voted on. In fact, the victory of the TRS in Telangana is another example of why farmer distress is a big issue. Their Raitu Bandhu scheme has definitely got a shot in the arm. In MP, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, agrarian states, the kind of drubbing that the BJP has got is a reflection of how farm distress and jobs is going to be a big issue ahead of 2019. I'm also saying this because the Congress has promised to waive farm loan waivers in all of these 3 Hindi heartland states. Definitely big things are going to come up from the central government as well to tackle the issue of farm distress. Another big takeaway is what happens to others when the contest is clearly between the BJP and the Congress. In Chhattisgarh, where the Congress has performed the best of all 3, the Jogi-Mayawati combination was supposed to have harmed the Congress party. It's the reverse. The big loss in vote share that the BJP has faced, about 10% or so, in a state where the difference between the winner and the loser has always been less than 1%. This time it will be closer to 10%. All of that 10% has been gained by both the JCC and the BSP, that is the parties of Ajit Jogi and Mayawati. Also a big indicator of what happens to others in a 2-cornered fight. Let's talk about Telangana. KCR has had a massive victory. Remember, he chose to go to polls at this time and not in 2019 with the rest of the country voting for the next prime minister. He made that choice, and it's a risk, a calculated one, that worked for K. Chandrasekhar Rao. He has also said very clearly from the beginning, reiterated today by his party and his supporters, that he is keen to forge a non-BJP, non-Congress alliance. He's made this attempt once in a meeting with Mamata Banerjee, which was a non-starter. With this big victory in Telangana under his belt, KCR will push that agenda once again. It will be a direct challenge and a headache for the Mahagathbandhan, which is already in the works, which after this win may see the Congress take a larger role. Even as the data will be passed through and analyzed over the days and weeks to come, these are the big top 5 takeaways we can talk about on this big election day.
What was committed by Mr. Modi, he has not been able to deliver. I mean, that's clear cut. And that is something that we felt throughout the campaign very strongly. This is a clear message to the Prime Minister and to the BJP that the country is not happy with what they're doing. The country is not happy with demonetization. The country is not happy with GST. The country is not happy with the lack of jobs. Issue number 2 is how India is going to ensure that farmers have a future in this country. How agriculture fits into the larger economic vision of this country. जैसे ही हमारी सरकार बनेगी, वो किसान कर्जा माफी का प्रोसेस शुरू हो जाएगा. Immediately. We would be setting the structure and the architecture for a new vision going forward for our country. So we are now starting a conversation internally, and we are going to involve large parts of our country in developing a vision for India that we then implement. बहुत strongly united है, uniformly united है और एक साथ लड़ेगी. विचारधारा and हम एक साथ मतलब comfortable हैं. Absolute best thing for me was the 2014 election. Now this would be counterintuitive to you. You'd say, what are you saying? But for me, I've learned a lot from that election. The most important thing in this country is what the people of this country feel. And as a politician, you have to listen to what they feel, you have to connect with what they feel, and you have to try and work with that sentiment. So that is a lesson. I mean, frankly, Mr. Narendra Modi has taught me that lesson. I mean, because I see what not to do.
You can watch that entire press conference, all the details there on the website bloombergquint.com. There are also several other stories that you'll find if you look up the website this morning. Of course, you'll find all the live market action right here on Bloomberg Quint Live. Let's take you through a couple of stories that you'll find if you look up the website. The board of the Securities and Exchange Board of India will meet today to discuss a host of measures. These include expanding its offer for sale framework to more companies, relaxing its norms for clubbing of investment limits by established foreign investors, and tightening insider trading rules. In other news, Byju's, which is an online tutoring startup, has now become the 4th most valuable startup in India. The recent $3.8 billion fundraise propelled it to the 4th spot behind Paytm, Oyo, and Ola. That's all you need to know going into trade today. Up next is Indian Open, so do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.